LeadingBlind here. I've decided to try something different. I'm going to sort of hijack something I've seen Pyramid Head do before. Hey Bruce, sorry to steal a little bit of your old formula, but I'm not doing it exactly the way you did, at least not that I remember. It's been years since you've done it. I'm going to react kind of live to something. Now I will be stopping the video and then just starting it again when I have something to say. But I've never, to my recollection, just reviewed a foreign film before. If I have, I just don't remember. And I've certainly never watched, to my memory, a vampire foreign film. And this is Children of the Night from 2017, and it is a Spanish vampire film. For those of you who want to know, it was written and directed by Noel. And I have a hard time seeing this and remembering it, so please just excuse me for a second. Very small cast list on IMDb. It stars Ana Maria Giunta. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Giunta. Toto Munoz, Sabrina Ramos, and Lauro Veron. So, yeah, I have this available to me on Tubi, which I have free. It's an app that you can, put on your computer, your PlayStation, your phone, to watch stuff for free. And yeah, I'm going to stop the recording, watch a bit, and then make comments as I come up with them. Now, I came up with this idea while taking a small break from the first 5 minutes, so I do already know it opens with a reporter who is reading an email from a woman who says she is the caretaker or proprietor of a old mansion house in a place called Limbo, and based on what I saw on IMDb, Limbo is the original title of the film, that takes care of children who have a very rare and just as equally rare to treat or cure illness, and she is preparing to do some research on the place to go visit and maybe do a talk piece or written piece about it. All I know really is that she got this email, that her friend has tried to talk her into not going by herself, and that she's apparently dating a co-worker, and he wants to go with her, but she said under absolutely no circumstances no, and don't flirt with me at work, please. And then he was suspiciously talking to somebody on the phone about, yeah, she just doesn't want me to go with her, and I don't want to do that, but yeah. Like, that's literally it. That's all he said on the phone. It was a little suspicious, and then she was on a bus, got dropped off on at a bus stop, like, in the middle of a forested road, like, a well-forested road, like, driving through Washington State or something. And, there was nobody there. That's as far as I've gotten. So, taking it from that point, here we go. And yes, I just changed my lighting and angle abruptly because I realized my ceiling light was going to keep me from being able to read the subtitles. Now, I would love to let it play a little bit in the background during some, silent-ish moments, but the subtitles suddenly come up, and I miss what's going on. So, she was walking from that bus stop into the night, because it was sunset when she got dropped off, and she came across somebody at a campfire, said she was looking for Limbo. They said Anne Gabrielle, which I'm pretty sure was one of the names mentioned at the beginning. I don't remember if it was the woman who sent her the email or a friend she was talking to her about. I just know it was Gabrielle, and she said, "How did you know?" and left it at that, and then she walked away and didn't get any answers, and then all of a sudden she came across a little kid dressed in white, giving her that kind of Patrick Bateman, Dexter, dead stare that's, no, a good Hannibal Lecter stare that, I'm very polite and pleased to meet you, but I'm dangerous. A, because it's Spanish language, and I don't know all the inflections perfectly well, and also B, because this could be a very deliberate, that's a creepy kid thing. I can't say the child is acting wooden or anything, but it could come across as wooden to some people, maybe. It was just a few sentences. You frightened me. Hey, I've been waiting for you a long time. I'm sorry. I can't remember what she said next. It was just, oh, you're beautiful. Let me take your suitcase. Okay, that was about the gist of it, but thought I'd note that kid, because it's a successfully lecturesque, creepy kid, leading her into limbo, presumably. So, creepy little boy's name is Siegfried, and she's now met the proprietor who emailed her. Sitting on the front porch seems very like a sweet old woman, like a matriarch you would find drinking tea in her parlor, wearing a shawl in like a nightgown at night while all the children are just out already. Where did the children go? No answer, of course. Why do I always make the mistake of trying to watch a movie that takes place primarily at night, or at least probably enough for the glare to have an effect on my visual acuity? Why do I always do this to myself? I always make that mistake. So it cut from her being out on the porch to being left alone in her room, presumably locked in. It was hard to tell, honestly. I don't think so. Then all of a sudden she's turning her light on, waking up in her bed to the sound of children singing something like a nursery rhyme, to sitting in a room with this matriarchal woman asking what the disease the children have is, and the woman doesn't answer her. She just says, it's from Transylvania. Really, you have to go, this is from Transylvania. It's not a big deal. It's rare. Hello. I'm just finding this funny, because then the reporter's like, oh, I've never heard of it. Heard of what? She didn't say what it was. Ah, a Transylvanian disease, but they have the Hungarian strain in Spain. Okay, we're gonna check off all the cliche boxes. Awesome. Okay, if I asked somebody if a disease I was researching was contagious and I was told no, well, yes, and then it depends, and they didn't answer me about depending on what, I would be the fuck out of there. I would just be the fuck out of there. Okay, for a split second I thought we weren't going to see any children until at least the halfway point, other than the original child that scared the hell out of her. There's more kids here than in Gatlin, okay? There's a bunch of kids here. Nighttime chores, nighttime play, nighttime kids pushing around and bullying other kids. Ooh, that was supremely uncomfortable. Some 13, 14-year-old kid just walked up to her and out of nowhere said, what lovely breasts you have. And she's like, how old are you? He's like, 33. Oh, that was uncomfortable. Okay, it just went from supremely uncomfortable to weird, because she said you seem familiar, and he's like, it's me. She's like, me who? And he said something about how her father messed it all up, and her mother didn't love her, and that's why they gave her to those people. That's okay, there we go. Then he asked for a hug, and she ran away. They're surrounded by other kids playing with her. Some kid ran into the bushes to take a piss, and he was like grabbed from the front and taken down to the ground, and then just cut to next morning or whatever. That was weird. Now there's all these kids playing in daylight with little paper sailboats. I'm having Stand By Me vibes and It vibes, but it's very peaceful and sweet. Okay, seconds later, I thought they had cut to a group of different kids in a nearby area, but no, I just saw the matriarch again, walking around these kids. So it's daytime, and all these kids are running around, so apparently the rules are not the same here as most vampire tales. The matriarch and the reporter were just sitting in a room, quietly. The reporter was writing notes or whatever. Some dude came in, and the matriarch addressed him as Mr. Pan. Well, that's automatic thoughts. You think like the movie Lost Boys took from that trope. And immediately somebody said Peter went missing last night, and the reporter took note of Peter Pan, the little boy who never wanted to grow. And they just gave her this look like, the fuck? And the matriarch just excused herself, holding on to what looked like a shift, like the children were wearing the night before. Oh, I'm looking at a buyer. They're putting him on a buyer in the water, dressed in that white garb. Yeah, she actually answered the question of what she was going to go take care of, and said that one of the children met their maker, and they're being surrounded by all the children in white again. This is creepy. I might just leave it running for a second. Like, I'm having too much fun doing it this way. I probably wouldn't be reacting this strongly if I was just watching it. But I can acknowledge something is immediately creepy to a camera. Ah, they kind of bowed to the buyer and walked off. Okay, not as creepy as all that, then. I'll update you in a minute. Okay, something to note real quick is that if you're going to watch Tubi films, you probably will have ads interspersed, because it is a free app. They give you ads, and you have to suffer through them. You can't skip them. Out of the blue, the matriarch just said again, "Your mom didn't love you, did she?" But she said, she did. She's like, "No, she didn't. They gave me up the second I was born. She never breastfed me. They didn't want a hemophiliac child, so she has a blood disorder." That's not going to end well. Right now the matriarch is claiming that the children are the same. We'll have to see how that conversation continues going. Her damn boyfriend just showed up out of the blue in the middle of that scene. What the fuck? She just recognized another kid, but I couldn't figure out from where. There was a flash of this one particular kid in a photograph, but I couldn't see the full sentence. It went by too fast for what she was saying. They're talking about strictly following the Catholic faith in this household. Just for the record, I want to note that they did that. I'm sure it'll come up. Alright, the boyfriend just got mad at her for not wanting to make out with him. But he said something about he's going back to Buenos Aires, so I thought this took place in Spain. Apparently, I'm mistaken. That's my fault. I just know that the language said Spanish. I should be more open about that. And now he's being stalked by little creepy vampire kids. A kid just ran up to the matriarch with a badly bleeding hand. I couldn't make it out because of my eyes. It's not the makeup, I don't think, or the special effects. I think they bit off a finger, maybe, or just bit really hard into the hand. I couldn't tell which. And the matriarch was like, yeah, don't be a crybaby. It'll be fine in the morning. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, so some of these vampire kids are real assholes. And no, nobody's supposed to know they're vampires yet, but children of the night. Come on, let's get real here. Hey, don't drink anything that some random person hands you, especially if they say it's meant to clear the mind. Although, damn, in this case it worked. She was like reluctantly taking a sip of the hot tea a child offered her to clear her mind after the bleeding incident, and she automatically started remembering those kids and the girl that just handed her the tea on missing children's posters online. I'm being a little harsh on it. I'm bragging it, but I am having fun, even though I'm not even halfway. Alright, so the tea was drugged. She woke up in a chair, called the matriarch a madman, or madwoman, correction, and tried to take off, essentially, and a kid appeared in front of her in the forest at night. I can barely see what's going on. And, told her, go back to limbo. You can't leave. I can't remember what the reporter said, but the kid was something like, I live with my dad, and my grandfather died over 150 years ago, something like that. And then I think it was the same kid, maybe? It was hard to tell because of what the kid looked like in the darkness. The kid was talking to the matriarch and said, "You're not controlling the situation, and I'm disappointed in you." Again, the matriarch is obviously more subservient to these vampire kids. I wasn't entirely expecting that, but we'll see how the story progresses. Alright, so she's having a confrontation conversation with the matriarch, because apparently she listened and went back to the house without any major provocation. The woman admitted some of them have been there for 74 years, they're vampires. Her job on the planet is basically to find these children and bring them there and prepare them for their final destiny, whatever the fuck that means. And then our lovely reporter, main character, remembered where she knew the first child that scared the hell out of her, Siegfried. She knew him as Emiliano. She remembered seeing him back when she was dying at some point, and she said her father was cruel to him, so we'll see where it goes from there. Alright, she charged out of the house, and all the children turned to her and kind of came around her in a semicircle, and one came up to her and hissed to these huge fangs, and she just reached out and yanked the fangs out of his mouth. They were fake. This was after she had been shown Rapunzel's little fangs inside the house. But then another kid came up to her and said, well, yeah, his haven't grown in yet, but these are real, and shows her fangs, and now it looks like a bunch of the kids are going to show her their real fangs and talk to her about them. The matriarch just told her there are limbos all over the world with vampire children in them, and that there are 12 in Argentina alone. Okay, so however small, this plot just keeps on trucking. During the conversation about how many limbos there were and how it was unrealistic that all these hundreds of thousands of kids went missing around the world every year, and to think that they all ended up in acid baths, you know, stuff like that. Somebody came in and said 2 of the kids are missing. The matriarch called for the count, who somebody just lit from above so you don't really see their face, although I bet I already know which kid it might possibly be. And then it showed a group of men around a campfire, all dressed in black, with the 2 kids that had gone missing peeking at them from around a tree. They got grabbed, staked, and beheaded by this group of adults, presumably humans. This is definitely an interesting, varied, extremely gray area tale, because apparently the children vampires are only allowed to drink animal blood, and the older children vampires are allowed to go out and drink human blood. There was a lot of exposition in that little scene. A lot of it seemed little, but apparently the children also get to drink human blood when they're baptized. They didn't say when that was, or at what point, or why, or anything like that, but Edra, I think is the matriarch's name. She did say that there was going to be a baptism there in 2 months. Alright, so we are 44 minutes in. We are an hour away from the end, and this is actually really interesting. Sylvia, is having the reporter is having a conversation with Siegfried / Emilio. I don't think it's exactly Emilio, but that's the best way I can say it. Are having a conversation, and he's acknowledging, yeah, we knew each other when you were a kid. There was nobody taking care of you. Apparently, her hemophilia was killing her, and her adoptive parents were not taking care of her. And he used to come visit her at night and take care of her on some level. It wasn't very clear about what he meant by that. And it showed a flashback of him visiting her and her father coming in with a gun and shooting him. You know, like, hey, you're here again. And he was like, you're letting her die. You know, you can't let her die. Dad shot him. He took off because he got, I think he got hit in the stomach. And again, this is like a 13, 14-year-old, physically year-old boy trying to take care of her. And 2 guys showed up and said what happened, and the dad said, we have to finish him off or he'll finish me off. And you saw at least one guy, again, dark, nighttime, hard for me to make out all the details, could have had the other 2 there, but at least the dad caught up with him. And he acknowledges, your father almost killed me. But then a bunch of the other kids showed up and attacked and ate him. And he said, your father almost killed me, and I thought you were dead. And then he said, please don't leave me again. Wow. Alright, clearly this is at least one of those movies where there's some mental growth in the children, because she just reached up to look at his fang, and then he's like, of course I disgust you. You women are all the same. And she's like, no, you just need to give me time to get used to this concept. So we'll see if he's being misogynistic, or if he's just referring to adults, or what exactly is going on there. I just thought I'd take note of the fact that he said that, and that happened. Holy crap, awkward again. He just asked Alicia if she would let him penetrate her. Now, in which way? Yikes, that's uncomfortable. For the record, the Count, who is one of the child vampires, is creepy as fuck, and apparently he can boil human blood with a thought. Okay, for a second, I thought that the movie was going to play on pedophilic things, which they've already done a bit, and they probably are going to more on some level. But I didn't recognize two of the Vampire Slayer group from a little bit earlier in the film. I just saw the Count approaching two men in the dark on a deserted street, saying that he was lost and asking for help. Very wooden acting in this case, but highly appropriate if you ask me. And the guys just smiled, and he turned around and they walked with him between them, and he took their hands and they sat down somewhere and were just flanking him and offered him a popsicle that he just kind of sat there and stared at while holding. It was melting all over his hand. And, they were like, we can help you if you want. And the Count was like, do you want to hurt me? And they're like, we would never hurt a child. Trust me, we would never hurt a child. And I thought it was going down that horrible road where, okay, these assholes deserve to die, which might still be the case depending on how the story keeps going. But, then all of a sudden one of them said, but you're not a child, and pulled out a stake, and now a bunch of the children are just converging on him with the Count. A moment ago when I first mentioned the Count being creepy, he was actually giving a class to the other vampire children about how human ignorance and fear is their best ally, and the other thing that was their best ally were the gifts that God gave them. So that was interesting. This is going in a lot of interesting different directions all at once. Some of them intensely uncomfortable, because even when you see children acting inappropriately towards adults, which to normal human minds that knows a little psychiatry might be like, well, they've had something horrible happen to them, so they're acting out what happened to them to other people inappropriately, not necessarily realizing it's inappropriate. Now, obviously, in this case, it's vampires who probably have adult minds in the bodies of children that they're stuck in. All that is probably true. I still don't know all the details about their physiology, but it's still creepy, and it's perfectly apt based on how they're doing a lot of these different tropes and discussions. So we're going to see how that continues to go. We're still looks like we're still just shy of halfway. But we should be halfway. It's just my bar doesn't look like it's saying halfway. It's at about 51 minutes right now. So as you can tell by how often I keep starting the camera, a lot goes on all at once. The Count just confronted the larger group. We haven't seen the ending of that, or maybe it was just a conversation. He confronted them around their bonfire, and he was like, hey, those kids you killed, they were kids. They were 8 years old. Their fangs weren't in yet. And they were like, well, then come on. You couldn't even protect them. Come avenge them. What's your problem? And he looked at one of the Slayers and was like, you haven't told them yet? So I have no idea exactly what's going on there, but we shall see. And the reporter's currently talking to the matriarch about, why so many of them are children. And she's just like, why do people eat veal and suckling pig? She's like, kids are the richer, sweeter, more tender meat. Disturbing, again, a little pedophilic, but something that makes a whole lot of logistical sense if you compare it to humans eating, animal meat. And one of the kids is sucking himself. I'm going to assume that means he's bloodletting and drinking his own blood. That seems to be a taboo. Okay, apparently drinking your own blood is akin to whacking off, and that's a sin. Alright, that was funny. There were just a couple of kids sitting at a table in a cellar drinking blood out of wine bottles, like pouring it and swirling it, and they're like, try this one, it's from a nun in 84, and the other kid's like, I don't like it, it's bitter. That was actually pretty funny. So apparently, Siegfried, aka Emiliano, or whatever his name was, he wants her to stay. He wants to be told he's attractive to her, and she's like, "Yes, well, no, well, I don't know, because he's a beautiful kid, but he's a kid to her." And she still feels affection because he was the one that most took care of her when she was growing up with her hemophilia. And then he talks about things that didn't entirely make sense to me. I think I missed translations or missed lines. People hide in the cinemas. People don't want to face the day or face themselves. Or maybe he was talking about how people fear the night. It was a little confusing which one he really meant based on the words I was catching on the subtitles. Sometimes they did go by pretty fast, even though I would pause and rewind. But then he said basically that the world can't continue like it is and things need to change, and will you help us, Alicia? So, I didn't note this earlier, but earlier, right as she was starting to notice all the really weird shit, like the vampiric type shit, the matriarch, and her name is Erdna, I believe, Erdna? I can't pronounce it correctly. She had warned Alicia not to be careful of Sigmund because, she said he had the face of an angel with the heart of a sinner. So, we'll see what continues to happen. Erdna was just discussing how she's not a chosen one, but she's not human. I don't know exactly what that means. Maybe it's just the way some people will view physical illness, because she's also hemophiliac. And she's like, I couldn't be turned because, I bleed. I have a bleeding disorder. And so, obviously, a vampire that bleeds out is not ideal, as Alicia put it. And Erdna said, yes, it's not ideal at all, so you don't have to be afraid of being turned, because they will never turn you because of your hemophilia. But beware, just because they don't turn you doesn't mean they won't bite you. So, Alicia's now having an open discussion with the children about blood and if they get sick of it or not. They all like something different. Some is like, well, I like old people blood, I like newborn blood, I like diabetic blood because it's sweeter, that type of thing. A little disturbing, but they're keeping it light, of course. And she asked about the Count. Apparently, the Count is the genuine biological grandson of Count Dracula himself. So, that's where this is going. And she also asks, as I have it paused, the subtitle says, how does it feel being so hated? Apparently, Bram Stoker met vampires and wrote Dracula after he was pissed off about his status among the vampire people or whatever. And his son seems to be a vampire, and they just alluded that the chief of the adult vampire hunters may potentially be that, maybe a vampire, maybe Bram Stoker's son. That's what I'm alluding to immediately, though. I just saw very cliche capes up to the hood, like up to the eyes, like this type thing. But apparently, Bram Stoker's son, like Bram Stoker, like presumably the matriarch Erdna, apparently they're half vampires. I don't know what that means in the context. They haven't said or shown much, but I'm just going to call him Stoker for now. The chief of the Vampire Slayers, presumably. He was holding a child hostage and telling the Count to come and save him, and he was like, you're worse than your father, you're no longer even a half vampire. And then it showed him escaping with the dying vampire boy against, like, as a human shield against him, and the Count couldn't follow, presumably because of daylight. Although we have seen plenty of these vampires in daylight. And then it showed a yard or a field with a bunch of dead vampire kids in it. So, to say there's a grudge is probably putting it lightly. And now there's some sort of communion going on with the kids. like a literal communion, drinking the blood of Christ, although it could be literal blood in this case. We don't know if they can eat human food or drink human drink. So the cult of children vampires plans to transform the world into all vampires in order to create a more compassionate existence. I think it's safe to say they're taking their page from the Book of Akasha. For those of you who aren't aware, I'm referring to Akasha from Anne Rice's Queen of the Damned, who had a different idea about how to deal with the human race, but, you know, it's how it always is. Blood supreme, we will change the order, all that jazz. Okay, that was another funny moment I just saw, but I gotta get to, there's a girl that's been going around smacking other children, and I thought she was just being bullied to all the other children. Turns out she's been smacking the same people, and Alicia just said, "Why is she so angry?" And oh, which name do I go by? The Emilio character. For some reason now I can't even think. Siegfried. His current name, Siegfried. He's like, they bit her during her acne phase, so she gets to go through life like that. She's a little pissed. Oh my god, that was so funny. But just before that, she'd woken up in bed and Siegfried was there, like, not quite spooning with her, but just touching her hair, laying behind her, and apparently he must have been human right around the same time as when they were sweethearts, as little children, because it showed them underneath a tree, maybe possibly doing one of those blood brother things, although she has hemophilia, that couldn't have been pleasant. And, you know, it showed them running together and saying, "We promised we'd love each other for all eternity," and she's like, "Yes, I remember," and it was really, really sweet, actually, even though it's creepy as hell, especially since now she's 33, and I don't know if he's lying or not, but he said he was 33, the same age as her. So, there's that. She just found her boyfriend hanging up by the wrists, because the Count's been keeping him captive and draining him of blood for a while, since he said he was going to go back to Buenos Aires. There was a short scene I didn't talk about, because I didn't even recognize the character of Gabriel. But, yeah, she just found her boyfriend. It's a little freaky to her. I'm glad I recorded about the boyfriend's phone call at the beginning, because I had forgotten about it, or nearly forgotten about it at this point. He was talking to other exterminating angels, as the matriarch called them. You know, she's like, "Why do you think the day you came here, one of our people were killed? Before this, there was an entire limbo that was destroyed. All innocent souls." Now, I'm sure all these vampire children are not innocent, and it's all a point of view, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, it makes total sense that Gabriel is a slayer. The baptism is extremely literal. The matriarch is giving them a baptism by pouring gentle water over their heads from a cup standing in a local river. Okay, so I just decided to watch through the last 20 minutes, and it was so worth it. I'm a little confused about a couple of things, because I did see vampires in daylight perfectly fine during plenty of moments in the movie, and then towards the climax there was a child burning in the sun at one point. But there was a big climax between the slayers and the vampire children. The fact that there's more than one limbo came into play. I do not want to reveal everything, but let me just say it got unexpectedly gruesome, and this is a horror movie that's had a little bit of blood in it already. I probably missed plenty of gruesome things just because of the nature of it being a vampire film and it being dark at points, so I didn't see everything clearly. It got gruesome, it got gory and bloody as gut-filled, and it was glorious. And after the main climax, it had a nice little sweet bookend that's both charming and adorable and also rather disturbing when you think of certain implications. I don't want to talk about it in a spoilery way, because I do think the climax at least does deserve, having just finished it seconds ago, to be witnessed firsthand. But this was my new my new format, I would say just on Letterboxd right now. I actually scored it before I finished the movie real quick. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and that feels about right to me. I mean, it might go down to maybe 3.5 to 4.5 or up to 4.5 stars-ish, you know, by half a star, depending on if I watch it again or how I feel once I've sat with it for a bit. But I don't think it's going to reach a full 5 star. I don't think it's going to go below 3 star. It's got its issues. There are things that don't make so much sense. There are things that are really disturbing. But this vampire movie covered a lot of the basics. Some of the ones that Let the Right One In actually covered. So Much Lost Boy kind of covered slightly. This was a really good modern vampire film, and it fed off of a lot of the tropes. And I wish it explained a couple more things more thoroughly, but I don't have to know everything. That's actually perfectly okay with me. So, I hope you enjoyed the new format. Please comment down below, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Let me know what you thought. Tell me if you think I should do this again. And I will see you all in the next video.